The HOA thought their bylaws were untouchable until they tried to ban my service dog. They gave me an illegal ultimatum, so I turned the ADA into a legal weapon that dismantled their entire operation. By the time I finished presenting the violations, the board didn't just back down. They resigned. It started with a certified letter slipped under my door on a Tuesday morning. The board informed me that my service dog, a 60-pound Labrador named Max, violated the community's strict weight limit of 25 pounds and the no pets policy outlined in Section 4.2 of the Bylaws. They gave me 14 days to remove him or face escalating fines starting at $100 per day. I called the board president, Margaret, that afternoon. Margaret, Max isn't a pet. He's a task-trained service animal for my PTSD and mobility issues. The ADA is clear on this. She laughed. The ADA doesn't apply to private communities. Our rules are our rules. You knew the weight limit when you moved in. She didn't care about the distinction. The board had made up their minds. They saw a dog, not a medical device. They saw a violation of their precious aesthetics, not a lifeline for a disabled resident. The stakes were immediate and brutal. Without Max, I couldn't sleep through the night. I couldn't walk without support. He alerted me to oncoming panic attacks before I even felt the first tremor. He was my anchor. The thought of losing him made my chest tighten into a knot that only he could untie. So I started recording. Every email, every voicemail, every hallway confrontation. I kept a journal with timestamps. I saved the letter, the fine notices, the meeting minutes where they debated the dog problem. I wanted a clear pattern of discriminatory behavior that no lawyer could deny. Next, I gathered formal documentation. My psychiatrist wrote a letter detailing my diagnoses and why Max was essential. My trainer provided certifications from an accredited program. I had records of Max's public access test scores and his task training logs. I built an undeniable paper trail of federal compliance. I consulted with an accessibility attorney named Sarah Chen. She specialized in Fair Housing Act and ADA compliance for HOAs. She mapped out the specific intersections where the HOA's private rules directly contradicted federal law. The FHA requires reasonable accommodations for service animals, she said. Their weight limit is arbitrary. Their no pets clause doesn't apply. They're violating Title II of the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. We drafted a formal notice of noncompliance. It was a 10-page document that shifted the argument from neighborhood gossip to a high-stakes federal violation. We sent it certified mail to every board member and their legal counsel. The statutes were clear. The ADA defines a service animal as a dog trained to perform tasks for a person with a disability. The FHA mandates reasonable accommodations in housing. The board members were acting outside their fiduciary duties by enforcing rules that broke federal law. They were personally liable for damages, not just the HOA's insurance. The moment of reckoning came during a special board meeting I was allowed to attend. I sat across from Margaret, the treasurer, and 3 other members. Their lawyer, a man named Thompson, read my notice aloud. When he finished, Margaret said, "This is ridiculous. We have a community to run." I kept my voice steady. "You have a community to run legally, and you're failing." Thompson pulled Margaret aside. I saw his face go pale. He whispered something. She shook her head. He whispered again, more urgent this time. She sat down hard. Sarah had explained the strategic pivot. If the board members were found to have knowingly violated federal law while acting as officers of the HOA, they could be held personally liable for damages, legal fees, and even punitive fines. Their insurance wouldn't cover willful discrimination. They'd have to pay out of their own pockets. The internal panic was immediate. Margaret's voice cracked when she said, "We need to adjourn." The board retreated to a back room. I heard raised voices, then silence. 15 minutes later, Thompson came out. "Mr. Davis," he said, "the board is prepared to negotiate." I didn't negotiate. I presented my terms: full compliance with the ADA and FHA, removal of all fines, a written apology, and a commitment to revise the bylaws within 30 days. If they refused, I would file a formal complaint with the Department of Justice and pursue a civil rights lawsuit for damages. They had 2 options: Resign or face individual financial ruin. 3 days later, I received a notice of an emergency board meeting. I attended with Sarah. The entire board sat across from us, their faces tight. Margaret cleared her throat. Effective immediately, we are resigning en masse, she said. The bylaws will be rewritten to comply with federal accessibility standards. All fines against you are voided. She didn't look at me when she said it. She stared at the table. The new bylaws were drafted within 2 weeks. They now prioritize resident health and federal accessibility standards over aesthetics. The weight limit was removed. The no pets policy now explicitly excludes service animals. A reasonable accommodation process was established. Max stayed. He sleeps at the foot of my bed, his head on my leg, his tail thumping against the floor. I walk through the neighborhood without flinching. I sleep through the night, and I know that the same blueprint I used. Record everything, gather documentation, cite the statutes, threaten personal liability.